Nino event in recorded history.
Hurricane Hillary makes history as new storms brew in the record-hot Atlantic. Panama Canal crippled by severe drought. Plus, Ecuador votes to protect the Amazon rainforest and keep oil in the ground.
Keep it in the ground. All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And it was only a few days ago before we all walked into one of the most significant weather events of our lives, something that makes many meteorologists can pinpoint an event that was just so off the charts that drew them into this field, and this was Tropical Storm Hillary.
Okay, now we're getting a little pornographic. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, are you as excited about Hurricane Hillary as that guy was?
Well, Hurricane Hillary was a truly historic storm.
Yes, it was.
As we go to air, Southern California is drying out and cleaning up from historic Hurricane Hillary, which spun up fast in the unusually warm Pacific Ocean, rapidly intensified to a powerful Category 4 storm in just 24 hours, making landfall on Mexico's Baja California Peninsula over the weekend before becoming the first tropical storm to hit California since 1939.
And exciting Ariel Cohen of the National Weather Service, apparently.
Yep. Tons of rainfall records broken, especially in mountain and desert areas like Palm Springs Valley, which was hit by nearly a year's worth of rain in a day, overwhelming its stormwater infrastructure. Hillary triggered unprecedented flash floods and mudslides that severely damaged transportation infrastructure across Southern California. But there were no reports of deaths or major injuries in the U.S.,
thus allowing me to have a big laugh at it all, I guess.
AccuWeather released a preliminary estimate of the total economic losses and damages from Tropical Storm Hillary in the western U.S., putting it at $7 to $9 billion.
Okay, less funny.
Climate scientists say man-made climate change turbocharged Hillary's rapid intensification, its historic track into California, and its torrential rainfall impact.
Okay, definitely less funny.
And it's not just Hillary. The sleepy Atlantic hurricane season has suddenly lurched into life with a string of new tropical storms suddenly brewing all at once, which experts say is especially unusual during a developing El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. Climate scientists say record hot water temperatures in the Atlantic are providing fuel to sustain storms as hurricane season reaches its peak in September. Severe drought is backing up the Panama Canal. The drought has caused a drop in water levels in the shipping channel, which is filled by two freshwater lakes. Canal operators have reduced loads and crossings this summer, with more than 200 ships on both sides of the canal waiting to pass through. Maritime transportation experts warn such events could become the new normal, with rainfall deficits affecting the ocean shipping industry that moves nearly 80% of global trade.
That as well is going to end up costing billions and billions of dollars, it would seem.
In Canada's historic 2023 wildfire season, firefighters are still battling massive fires that forced the mass evacuation of Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories, in Canada's worst fire season on record. British Columbia has declared a state of emergency due to the fires. Officials now warn that Canada's fires could last not just through the fall, but into winter. UCLA climate scientist Dr. Daniel Swain on the broadcast said that while scientists accurately predicted the rate of man-made global warming that we're seeing today, they underestimated its impacts on ecosystems and human systems, which are more intense and arriving earlier than expected. And that means society hasn't yet come to terms about what it all actually means for the world we live in.
Given that we're continuing to warm on this roughly linear track, but even if it stays relatively linear, the impacts won't be. And we're starting to see things, the limits of our adaptability already, and it's only going to get harder with additional warming.
But there is some good news. India has approved a $7 billion plan to build and deploy 10,000 new all-electric buses in nearly 200 cities to cut local air pollution and emissions, and officials say they're cheaper to operate. And finally, in Ecuador, in a historic national referendum, Ecuadorians voted overwhelmingly to ban oil drilling in Yasuni National Park in the Amazon rainforest, one of the most diverse biospheres in the world. It's hailed as a historic example of climate democracy, and it was also a victory for indigenous peoples and conservationists.
I will share that hailing. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks, Mastodons, and site formerly known as Twitter. We're going to be off for a bit until after the Labor Day holiday for a number of reasons. Until then, stay safe out there. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
We do have this breaking news just into CNN. That is, the Wagner mercenary group chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has been listed among passengers on board a plane that crashed just north of Moscow. This, according to Russian state media. You may remember that Prigozhin and his Wagner group led an attempted mutiny coup against the Russian president 2 months ago to the day, on June 23rd. He made his way close to Moscow before turning around, and now 2 months later, CNN is reporting that the chief listed among those on the passengers of this plane that crashed north of Moscow.
Oh, my God. People have fallen out of the sky in Moscow. All because they staged some sort of a mutiny coup, an insurrection, if you will, if you may. Are we becoming more like them, or are they becoming more like us? We got a former president of the United States who's under indictment for RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization crimes, along with 18 other stooges. It's to the point where we're having a debate, and the elephant in the GOP elephant room is Donald Trump. He's actually the elephant that's not in the room is Donald Trump. It is so unbelievably similar what's going on. We have a past president who's been charged with an insurrection, mutiny, subversion of an American election. And then you got Russia. I don't know. I see Donald Trump wants to be Vlad, right? Because Donald Trump would like to see certain airplanes like Rudy. Did you see Rudy today? Did anybody see Rudy in his little private airplane today, flying into, not Atlanta. No, not into Hartsfield. He was on a private plane. This man that people are predicting will be homeless shortly. He stiffed, I don't know how many lawyers. They say he owes $1 million in legal fees. Poor Rudy. He can't even find somebody, to sign the bond for him, to sign. Maybe he'll represent himself pro se, meaning he'll have an idiot for a client, right? Because he'll be representing himself. But honest to God, man, he had this little private plane that took him into an airfield outside of Atlanta, and then he was going to be allowed to drive himself to the Fulton County Jail to surrender and sign the bond and pay the money that is required for him to be released, right? Now, if Donald Trump was Vlad, Rudy's airplane might not have made it all the way into the great state of Georgia, you see, and we haven't gotten quite there yet, so there is a small little amount of joy to be had in America as we report what did apparently happen in Russia today. Yeah, and we don't know. There's no confirmation that Yevgeny, the hot dog salesman, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was a mafia guy, okay? And that's why Yevgeny Prigozhin was in jail before he became Putin's caterer, chef, what do we call this man who served a hot dog so delicious that it moved Vlad to give him millions of dollars and to hire him to cater all events at Putin's palace. All events. Okay? I don't know. So we don't know if it was Prigozhin on one of these two planes. So here's what I'm learning, and it's breaking now. And when news is breaking, especially news of international magnitude, it has to do with death and maybe an assassination. The news is kind of wrong for the first, I'll say hours, maybe sometimes the full day. But the story that I'm hearing, the story that I'm learning. And I'm going to use the Richard Engel version of events because that's the one that I believe is probably the closest to the truth. So Richard Engel on MSNBC, okay, has reported that there were two planes today, two airplanes, both Wagner Group aircraft, okay, with various Wagner Group, heavyweights on those two airplanes. The planes were apparently going from Moscow to St. Petersburg. And one of the planes made it to 20,000 feet. You hear the ding at 10,000, everybody. This is when I whip out my, airport food and begin to eat because at 10,000 feet or above, there are no carbs. You understand that? Anyway, it got to 20,000 feet and then all of a sudden plummeting. One of the planes plummeting, just, free falling, dropping, from the sky, no direction, no control, no nothing, as if it was, hit with something. Like a rocket or a missile, or it was just totally instant and not even an attempt to control it, steer it, whatever. And it crashed 20,000 feet to the ground. But there was a second plane that was flying with it on the same, flight path that was also Wagner, that was going to the same place, Moscow to St. Petersburg. And I don't know if it landed yet or not. I'll have to check. Or you could tell me. The manifest of passengers says that Prigozhin was on the aircraft that crashed, the one that went down in a field. There were, I think, 8 people, 3 crew on that plane. Seems like Prigozhin was also flying with another guy, the guy that might be considered, if Wagner wasn't all Yevgeny Prigozhin all the time, you might consider another person that was in this convoy, for lack of a better word, it's just 2 planes, was the number 2 at Wagner. Now, it would make no sense at all to have the number 1 and the number 2 on the same aircraft. We would never do it. You would never have the president and the vice president. That's why we have Air Force One and Air Force Two. Okay, you would never put all the key people in any organization, whether they were, a government or a wannabe government or a mercenary group or a rapist for hire, whatever you want to call them. You would never put the top bananas on the same aircraft if you had access to 2 aircraft, which apparently they did. So we're waiting now to see whether or not Prigozhin was on the airplane that went down for sure, whether he was on the second airplane, whether he was one of the dead bodies that they found. All I can tell you is Vladimir Putin never, ever forgets. Okay? He never, it's just the same personality as a Donald Trump, let's say, for lack of a better comparison, that you would know. Meaning, if you are disloyal to Vlad, suddenly, pianos fall on you, or you're poisoned with polonium, or you're poisoned with, like the Skripals, okay? You're poisoned with, a Novichok, and they leave it on your door handle, or you fall out of a window. Right? This is, you know why? Because they're all mafia over there. The whole government is mafia. And guess what the mafia do, everybody? They kill each other. Right. That's what they do to retain power. That's what they do to get to power. And that's what they do once they have power, is they kill anybody that is disloyal to them. Now, Donald Trump doesn't have that kind of power yet. In a second term, I would say, yeah, probably. But now, no. There's still some semblance of law and order in this here country. We do have lone wolves out there that are willing to do, ugly, disgusting things at the behest of their dear leader, at the behest of the capo de capo, at the behest of Paulie, whatever you want to call him, the Godfather, whatever. But not the Godfather himself. But Putin does. He does. He absolutely does. And so it looks like, maybe he has taken his revenge because Yevgeny Prigozhin, as you remember, marched almost all the way to Moscow, screaming and yelling about his dead Wagner mercenaries and how Shoigu and the entire Russian military needed to be gutted, needed to be gotten rid of because Vladimir Putin was allowing them to be so careless with his mercenaries. Yeah.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
The Bob Cesca Show.
Bob Cesca. I'm still leaning toward Trump suddenly showing up for the debate. I think he's going to show up because I don't think Donald Trump can resist being on television. And I think a lot of people are hectoring him because it's a sign of weakness.
I don't know whether it's a mistake or not a mistake for him to show up. I know it's going to look bad to a lot of Republican voters, maybe not Trump supporters. Yeah. Here's my take on this. Trump will get all the camera time he needs the day after the debate. Yeah. When the analysis begins to fade from Wednesday night's debate, Trump will be on TV making a show to the extent that he can about getting arrested in Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. And he's gonna, you're talking about him being a hog for camera time. He'll get that. In fact, he'll upstage the entire debate solo the following day, regardless of what they say about him the night before. And look at the poll numbers of the people who will be debating, the 8 Republican candidates who will be debating Wednesday night. The situation, here's the vibe, I think, at the debate. It's on Fox, of course, and Trump had planned to send in sort of a proxy team of Don Jr., and Kimberly Guilfoyle, and send them into the spin room at Fox, and Rupert Murdoch has now banned them. There will be no Trump team in the spin room after the debate on Fox. So there's an interesting dynamic going on there. I think Fox. I think Trump plans to steal the show on Thursday, solo, and I don't think he will show. I think he'll let them all flail, and then he'll make a show the following day. That's my guess. But you could be right. It wouldn't be un-Trumpian for him to show up.
Bob Cesca. It's the Bob Cesca Show. New episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts, and at bobcescashow.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not issue her a diploma. She was able to still go to college at Berkeley, where she eventually earned her Ph.D. She married carpenter and labor organizer William Bud Reynolds. She became a prolific folk singer, playing around the Los Angeles area. During the 1960s, she wrote about songs supporting civil rights and labor rights. Her song, Free Enterprise, offers the lyrics, "The air you breathe is poison. The food you eat is worse. The dollars in your paycheck are pennies in your purse. There's nothing free about it. You pay at every turn, except the guys in Wall Street who have the stuff to burn. They had to make new brain machines to count their profits rise, but since there's always room for more, they can still make their profits soar. A little war does wonders for free enterprise." Perhaps her most well-known song is Little Boxes. The song was inspired by driving by hillside houses in Daly City, California.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
What we're trying to figure out now is, was Prigozhin on this plane that went down? That went down very suspiciously. There is video of a plane, according to, and it seems to match with flight tracking data, that a plane took off. It reached over 20,000 feet, and then it suddenly stopped transmitting. And there is a video of a plane,
falling out of the sky.
allegedly this aircraft, plummeting from the sky, no control whatsoever, just dropping like a stone. Apparently, however, there was more than one plane flying in some sort of convoy. They were flying together, and the second plane is either coming into land or has landed, and apparently that second plane was also a Prigozhin plane, a Wagner plane, but according to the Russians, according to TASS, Prigozhin was on the first one, and that a number of bodies, not Prigozhin's body, but a number of bodies have been recovered, including one of the Wagner's top leaders, a second in command under Prigozhin.
Right. And so everybody's trying to figure out, like, what idiot would put the number one and the number two on the same plane, especially when you stage some sort of a coup against Vladimir Putin just 2 months ago to the day. That just doesn't make sense. And then the other thing is what now they're saying it looks like an improvised explosive device hit that airplane, that it wasn't, some pilot error. Or, I mean, did you see that? That thing was just like like a rock, just no control. And it stopped transmitting at the exact same moment that it started its, let's say, final descent into some field in Moscow. So now, of course, if this was Vlad's handiwork, you know what has to happen now, right? Of course, the military itself that worked with the Wagner mercenaries, the military itself is going to have to purge itself of disloyalists, of people who wouldn't. And I just want you to understand that the reason why this is germane to your life in these United States of America is because this is exactly what Donald Trump would do if he were given the awesome, power to do so. If we actually let Donald Trump think for 1 second that he was not above or below the law, but that he was the law, that the government of the United States is no longer a democratic government. It's no longer a representative republic. It's no longer whatever the hell you in your libertarian brain or in your conservative right-wing mind or in your uber left-wing progressive agenda, seeking mind, think that this government is, right? Let's just say it's not any of those things anymore. It's now a mafia state. And the boss, the godfather, the big cheese, the head guy, has the ability to kill people on Fifth Avenue and never be held accountable for anything at all. I mean, he dabbled in, he dabbled in let's say, murder adjacent activities, like, remember when he cleared Lafayette Square and he was able to get, General Milley to do it with him, to walk with him to a freaking, church on the other side of Lafayette Park. Remember that? And Milley ended up apologizing to us as Americans for even being present when Donald Trump decided that he was going to pepper spray, gas, whatever it was, clear the park and use, horse, the people on the horseback, whatever, right? And Milley was walking, and Milley apologized, right? Well, imagine if that apology was considered a mutiny or considered disloyalty to the point where Donald Trump could and would. I mean, I know he wishes he could have retaliated, beyond letting him go, relieving him of his command, whatever, No, he would like to, monitor his flights, as well. So I want you to understand how close we came to having Vlad as our leader. And tonight is going to be a debate for, somebody else. Because, like I said, the elephant not in the room full of elephants, because they're Republicans, is going to be Donald. Now, the reason why I want you to watch this is hard. This is a big ask. It's a hard ask. You know why? It's like, would I ask you to watch, I don't know, name a fighter, Brett, Name a a big fighter, like I'll just say Muhammad Ali.
There you go.
But would I ask you to watch the Thriller in Manila if Ali wasn't fighting? Do you know what I'm saying? Would I say you have to watch, I can't think of another fighter. Do you know any fighters?
Let's say
no,
Roy
nobody
George
watches
Jr.
fight.
New fighters.
No, not new. Any at all. Just a name.
Yeah, Mike Tyson.
Okay, so I wouldn't ask you to watch a Mike Tyson fight if Mike Tyson wasn't fighting. Okay, you understand? But I am asking you to watch a GOP presidential debate without Donald Trump. I'm asking you to do that. You know why? 2 reasons. One, because you won't remember anything that happened after tonight about tonight, because tomorrow he's going to take all the air out of the room, because tomorrow he's going to surrender himself in prime time. In prime time. Swear to God. This is what he's... And a lot of the 20% of the people that are going to vote for Donald Trump, they're already spoken for tonight, right? They're already, their dance card is full, because the thing that's drawing Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump together, even though, do you remember that Tucker Carlson, said that he can't stand this man, that this man was, he couldn't stand him. He was so ready for Donald Trump not to be president anymore because he hated him. He couldn't stand him anymore. And Donald Trump saw that. I mean, he knows it. The thing that is holding them together is not the mutual admiration one upon the other. No, it's their mutual hatred for Fox News, right? And so Tucker would like to stick a shiv in Fox News tonight too, even though Tucker is still under contract to Fox, and he's going to face some legal activity too, because he's not supposed to be broadcasting interviews with presidential candidates while he's under contract with Fox News. But okay, that set aside, he hates Fox because Fox purged him. They spewed him out. And Donald Trump hates Fox News because Fox News is looking for somebody to replace Donald Trump, okay? And that's why they're hosting this debate at all. And I need you to watch, because either somebody on this stage is going to be the Republican presidential nominee. Not that I think any of them could win, and I don't think they would be the next president. But what I do think is possible is that you might be looking at the next vice president. You might be looking at the next secretary of state. You might be looking at the next joint chiefs. And it could very well be a guy with no military experience who is completely loyal to Donald Trump. See what I mean? That's why I'm asking you to watch a Mike Tyson fight without Mike Tyson. Right? Okay. So, the only lesson that you can take from what we just saw happen in Russia is, there but for the grace of God go I. Because we are so close to becoming that. We are so near to having a mafia government. We are so close to, I don't know, I hate to say elect, but have somebody, manipulate their way into that office.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. You said Rudy Giuliani, now both an indicted and unindicted Trump co-conspirator, shows no signs of cooperating with prosecutors. Here's why Rudy will make a better defendant than he would a cooperating witness. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, there are some defendants who are so ugly, I call them 10-foot pole witnesses, because you don't want to touch them except with the end of a 10-foot pole. There's some people, Steph, that we can't, as prosecutors, put on the stand and urge jurors to believe them and urge jurors to convict somebody else based on their testimony, because they're so ugly. They've so damaged their credibility. As I related in one of my Justice Matters videos, an old homicide detective of mine, we would sit there and we would strategize. Can we clean this person up enough to put them on the stand in good conscience and ask jurors to believe them? And this Detective Lauren Ledman, may he rest in peace, would always say, if the witness was ugly enough, he'd say, Glenn, you can't polish a turd.
That's a legal term.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a post facto.
You also tweeted Donald Trump as a new entry on his criminal resume, one that will follow him through history, RICO defendant. I mean, that is the irony, right, with Giuliani and Trump. Yeah. That, you know, this is, we've talked about this, that he's been a mobster his whole life, you know, and here's Rudy Giuliani. I know a lot of mobsters' attorneys were having a good time talking about Rudy.
I think Trump is pleased with the RICO label. I really think he has always aspired to be the mob boss, the leader of a criminal organization. He got what he wanted. I also saw that piece in the Daily Beast about how all of the mobsters that Giuliani convicted a very long time ago are celebrating that the RICO has come for Giuliani.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Every woman knows the terror of sexual abuse and assault. Too many of us know the pain firsthand. Some attack us mentally. Some go beyond that. For too many, it's physical, even fatal. There's no excuse for sexual assault and abuse, unless you're Republican Donald Trump. But she is not my type. Supporting Donald Trump sends a message to every abuser.
You can do anything. Whatever you want.
Every rapist.
Grab him by the pussy.
And every man who's ever used his power to hurt a woman. Because if he can do it, why shouldn't they?
Last week, T-Mobile, my cell phone provider, pinged me with a rude message. Henceforth, we will screw you out of an extra $5 a month. What? Had I done something wrong? No. Would I be getting some added benefit for my $5? No. It seems that T-Mobile bean counters have just arbitrarily decided that we customers who use credit cards to pay our phone bills online must pay an extra $5 each month as a payment processing fee. Yes, we're to pay them to take our money. Bonnie and Clyde were not that brazen. You can avoid the add-on if you give your bank account number to T-Mobile, allowing it, and who knows who else, to have direct access to your personal stash of cash. No. Tut-tut, say the T-Mobilers. Your private info is perfectly secure with us. Do they think we have sucker rappers?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All eyes are on the battleground state of Wisconsin, where the battle for the GOP nomination will take a dramatic turn tonight with the first Republican debate. 8 candidates expected to take the stage for 2 hours in prime time. Frontrunner Donald Trump will not be among them. At center stage, the 2 highest polling candidates present, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy.
It's a good night. A good night is people introducing myself to the people of this country and people who maybe, just maybe, some people actually able to pronounce my name here.
The candidates divided over how to take advantage of the absence of Donald Trump. Critic Chris Christie expected to be on the attack.
I think the big loser in tomorrow night's debate has already been determined, and it's Donald Trump, because he didn't have the guts or the respect to show up on that stage and defend his record.
But new polling from NBC News and the Des Moines Register shows that among likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa, no position is less popular than aggressively attacking the former president over his mounting legal troubles. Data that supports the strategy of candidates like South Carolina's Tim Scott.
People will make a decision based on the future of their family, not what's going on in the legal entanglements of the former president.
But those entanglements could dominate the debate discussion nonetheless, and will pull a spotlight south on Georgia Thursday, where the former president is expected to turn himself in to face wide-ranging charges in Fulton County for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election there. The first of his 18 co-defendants, including attorney John Eastman, booked and released on bond on Tuesday.
Look at that.
Eastman asked if he still believes the election was stolen from Mr. Trump.
Absolutely. Still.
No question.
No question.
No question in my mind.
That's his defense. Is he really believed it? That's the only defense he has. Is he really believed it? He has to stay true to this fantastical thing. Even though we know that what was his name? Eric Hirschman. Remember Eric Hirschman, the guy with the three scalps on the wall with the panda painting. Remember him? Said there. He told Eastman, "All I want to hear is seamless transition. That's what I want to hear. Seamless transition." And he finally said it. Seamless transition. And he said, "And now I'm going to give you the best legal advice you've ever gotten in your life. Get yourself an effing lawyer, the best criminal defense attorney you can find, because you're going to need it." And he's still, saying, "Oh, no, I still," because that's his only defense. Okay, so I don't know what to call this. Melee in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee mashup. What are we going to call this? Winning Wisconsin. Well, DeSantis is going to be on this. I mean, DeSantis, you could just call him snow woke. Okay, every answer to every question is going to be, "That's such a woke question." Everything about, like, why are you banning books? Because books are woke. Why are you, banning African American history? Because African American history doesn't teach that slavery actually benefited, ex-slaves, that they learned, a trade. I don't think he's got the nads to say any of these things that he said, previously on a national debate. I don't know. But I will tell you that Vivek, we're being told now that Vivek Ramaswamy, and you would think the Ramaswamy part was the hard part. No. It's the Vivek part that's hard because there's an E in it, right? But they're saying it rhymes with cake, Vivek. And Ron DeSantis had you remember that stupid memo that his super PAC released? It's like, "Release the hounds, we're losing," just put it out there. Because the official rule, the one presidential campaign rule that we still have. Well, we have two. One has already been broken. It is no foreign money. Yeah, tell that to the NRA. Okay. Maria Butina, anybody? Okay, just a flashback I'm having. But the other rule is that your super PAC can't coordinate with you, the candidate, because they're raising such an obscene amount of dark money. They're not supposed to coordinate with you, the candidate. But meanwhile, Ron is riding on the super PAC bus, but pretending that they're not talking about the campaign. I don't even know. So there's no rules. There aren't any. But, DeSantis is in second place, and so he's going to be the punching bag. But if you look at what Vivek Ramaswamy has been saying, the amount of lies he's been telling, the twisting of he tried to peddle. This is really sad for him because he's a billionaire. Okay, they're all billionaires. You don't really need to be on that stage, Vivek. He sold some discovery, some bio, I don't want to call it a weapon, some bio cure for some damn thing that didn't work. Might have been cancer for all I know. And he sold the company and he made, like a fortune, like $1 billion. Okay. That's how he made his money. And he's going to say he's an entrepreneur. If you see entrepreneur on Tinder, swipe. Okay. Just keep going. Entrepreneur. What does that mean? I have no job is what that means. When people ask me what I do, I don't say I'm an entrepreneur, even though I run my own business. I say I'm a talk show host because that is what I am. I'm not an entrepreneur. Anyway, so Vivek is going to be on the stage. And apparently in that document that was leaked, they came up, the DeSantis people came up with a nickname because, Ron has been called Ron DeSanctimonious, Ron DeSanctum. I don't know. I guess Donald Trump thinks DeSanctum sounds like rectum or something like that. Like rigor sounds like, right. So this is why, he's named him that. And so Ron DeSantis is now trying to come up with nicknames a la Trump. And he gave Vivek, or the super PAC did, gave him the nickname Vivek the Fake. Or Fake Vivek, whichever trips off of his little tiny tongue, the little 5'8" guy, Ron DeSantis. So I don't know, what do you call this thing? So, Woke Whitey and the Seven Whores? Okay, that's good for me. I'll call it that. Because this is going to be like, listen, obviously, Christie is going to come out, just blasting Donald Trump because that's his lane. And unfortunately, if you are a Republican primary voter, you will not be able to clear that lane for Chris Christie. You know why? I looked today. You want to know what the polls are? Okay. So the purpose of this debate is to persuade people who are firmly in the Trump camp, okay, to vote for somebody else, to switch their vote for someone else, to leave MAGA and to give their vote to somebody not Donald Trump, okay? Well, the polling today says that the Republican primary voter, 71% of the Republican primary voter says that they will do whatever Donald Trump says they should do. I swear to God, that is what the poll question was. Will you do whatever Donald Trump wants you to do? 71% said, yes, I will do whatever he says. Swear to God. 63% say that their friends and family, they will talk it over with. They'll have a conversation with their friends and family. 56% say they do listen to the conservative hosts on conservative media platforms, and they do take them and their opinion into account. But 42% say that they believe their religious leaders, and they'll do what their religious leaders tell them to do. None of it says read a newspaper. None of it says I will vote based on where the facts, wherever I find the facts I will follow, and wherever that leads, that's what. No, nobody. Zero.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
For 248 years, the United States Marine Corps has valiantly defended this country against foreign enemies. The Marine Corps' legendary courage, determination, and skill on the battlefield leaves our enemies in fear and our allies in awe. Marines of every race, creed, and color have sworn a sacred oath to protect our Constitution. They fought, bled, and died for this country. Today, the Marine Corps faces a domestic enemy, a small man with a big mouth, determined to destroy the Corps for his petty political agenda. Tommy Tuberville is creating a national security nightmare. Who wins from Tuberville's attack on the Marine Corps? China, ISIS, Vladimir Putin. Tommy Tuberville insults every Marine who ever served, and he puts the men and women of the Marine Corps on the line in danger. Every U.S. Marine is a patriot. Tommy Tuberville is a traitor. The American flag today flies over a nation divided. A nation where hatred and violence makes a mockery of the sacrifices of generations. A nation where one party storms the Capitol in a violent attempt to overthrow a free and fair election. A nation where one party claims ownership of the flag and the very idea of patriotism. It's time to fight back, to take back the flag from those who dishonor it. The symbols of our republic, this bold experiment that has struggled and bled to bend the arc of history, don't belong to the Republican Party. They don't belong to Donald Trump or Fox News or violent terrorists. The flag belongs to every American. It's not their flag. It's not his flag. It's our flag.
Today, an indictment was unsealed.
It's here. Now, that's what I call conspiracy. Volume 3. 78 of the hottest indictment charges from your favorite superstar president. And still technically not a criminal. Like conspiracy to violate civil rights. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Obstruction of an official proceeding. And conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Collaborations with hot new artists like Co-Conspirator 1.
Let's have trial by combat.
And we'll throw in his bonus lyrics booklet just released. Duel. Now, Volume 3 has the best of today's court docket topping hits and all the charges from the classified documents case, including obstructing justice, making false statements, and of course, retaining classified information.
Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers, except it is like highly confidential, secret. There's secret information. These are the papers.
Yeah.
See, as president, I could have been less. Now I can't, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's so cool.
Dozens of incriminating and, for some insane reason, recorded tracks, such as 34 felony counts of falsifying business records and a hush money scheme.
When it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay for cash.
No. I got... No.
Order now and get all these hits. Or order in a few weeks and we can squeeze in a couple more from an upcoming indictment in Georgia.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Now, that's what I call Conspiracy, Volume 3. What's that? Volume 4? What? Oh, Volume 4. Guys, how many of these are there? Why don't I just record all the numbers, because this keeps happening. Save us some time.
Glad to have a MAGA-packed Supreme Court? Proud that they lied under oath to get the job? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you enjoy seeing our rights disappear one by one, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War I. Because of this, Malvina's high school would not.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, everybody. Rudy's out. He just got booked. He just got booked into the Fulton County Jail, and now he's speaking.
And I will tell you, if you need to know what this is all about.
I do.
The FBI stole my iCloud account.
Oh, my God.
And you know when they went and stole it? The day that I began representing Donald Trump 4 years ago. The day after I represented Trump.
Mr. Mayor, you affect...
For all that time, federal government...
Be careful, guys. Nobody
falls. On Donald Trump and his lawyer. I am being indicted because I'm a lawyer, as is
Mr. Mayor, last month, you, hey, Mr. Mayor, right here, Mr. Mayor, you effectively
Mayor, will you be here tomorrow? By the way, you're wrong. I didn't do that. I entered into a stipulation for the purposes of that case to move on. It specifically says I do not in any way admit the truth of those allegations. Those allegations are totally false.
You did not contest that you made fraudulent claims about the 2020 election, though, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely wrong, and you're lying, as you often do. If you read it, it says it was only for the purposes of that case, and it was not an admission.
You had the opportunity to refute it, though, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, that's it.
We gotta go. Mr. Mayor.
Back it up. Mayor, turn the election.
Mr. Mayor. Hey, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, do you acknowledge that you made false statements?
That is a total lie. Why don't you go put yourself somewhere
But you
now?
acknowledged it. Why did you not fight that in the court?
Acknowledge it. That was a stipulation that's done in every lawsuit, not for the purposes of truth.
You did not. You did not contest it. You had the opportunity to fight that.
Wrong. I did not, because I had to move on to legal issues. Now let me take another question.
Oh my God!
Made false statements. Will you be here tomorrow?
I will not be here tomorrow.
What is he
I
saying?
talked to the president today. I wish him well. I have every confidence in him. What they are doing to him is an assault on the American Constitution. And I say to American citizens, this could happen to
guys,
you.
you got to stop now. You have made false statements, sir.
That is an old man who had too much wine. It's an assault on the Constitution. Are you kidding me? You lied to legislatures across this great nation. You lied in Arizona to the legislature. You lied to Rusty Bowers, had the Speaker of the House in Arizona, had the best Rudy Giuliani quote of anybody's Rudy Giuliani quote. And that includes in Georgia, where he said that Shea Moss and Ruby Freeman were passing around USB ports like they were vials of crack cocaine or heroin. That was the sickest, most twisted analogy I ever heard for people who simply went to volunteer to count votes and do it every 4 years. Okay. But in Arizona, Rusty Bowers, the Speaker of the Arizona House, had the best Rudy Giuliani quote. He said that he kept asking Rudy Giuliani about these dead voters, and he kept asking Rudy Giuliani about these illegal voters, and he kept asking Rudy Giuliani about these underage voters. And they were saying there were tens of thousands of them. There were so many that were ineligible to vote because they weren't citizens, or because they were dead, or because they were underage, or because whatever. And Rusty Bowers kept saying to him, "Are you going to show me the evidence?" And Rudy said to him, "We have a lot of theories. We just don't have the evidence." And Rusty was like, "And you want me to violate my oath based on that flimsy explanation that you just, really? How dumb do you think I am? Go away, Rudy. There's something wrong with you." And then in Arizona, they subjected you guys in Arizona to the cyber ninjas. The freaking cyber ninjas. I mean, this is such a sick, twisted story. I mean, really, it's the most amazing. And there's Rudy over there with nobody paying his legal bills. Like Donald Trump, the best he could get out of Donald. You know why? Donald is pissed that Rudy didn't invent fraud. He's so angry that Rudy promised fraud that didn't exist, but Rudy said he could find fraud that didn't exist. He could find that. The elusive fraud that didn't exist, Rudy would find it, document it, submit it over his signature, okay, under penalty of perjury, to Arizona, to Wisconsin, to Georgia. He would do it. He would find it. He got this. And he didn't. He refused to allege fraud in court because he was afraid of losing his law license. Oh, well, that happened. And so he wouldn't lie in court. He wouldn't use the word fraud in court cases, all 60 of them. None of them would he admit that there was evidence of any fraud, because he knew that if he said that as an officer of the court, he would lose his license, which he eventually did for lying to legislatures. But this is so amazing to me that he went to Donald Trump. He went and sublimated himself. I mean, he literally prostrated himself. He stood and licked Donald Trump's boots, okay, and begged him, "Please get my legal fees." And Donald Trump is like, "Can't do it, Sally. Can't have it. I just can't do it. Sorry. Can't do it. Not even for old time's sake. No, can't do it." Right? And so there's Rudy with no money. His apartment is $6.5 million apartment on the market, right? And he needs lawyers now. He needs lots and lots of lawyers, or else he's going to the pen, okay? The federal pen. These are federal crimes under the RICO Act, which he made a thing for white-collar criminals, okay? That's what Rudy did. He made the Boesky case a RICO case, okay? This is what he did. He took financial crimes and turned them into racketeering crimes. And now he's being charged under that same idea that RICO could be used for white-collar crimes. And it could be used for white-collar criminals who happen to be in politics. Oh, God. I mean, the irony of it is so delicious. I mean, it's just, it's like a moist, wet, delicious cake. Yeah. It is. And so, they're all going to be, needing lawyers. Rudy Giuliani honestly had to find somebody who would just sign the bond agreement. And he couldn't even find one person to do that for him, because the people that have represented him are owed $1 million. $1 million. And he's never paid them. Donald doesn't pay either. That's how disgusting they are. That's how thoughtless and careless they are about, the future. They don't even and it's so interesting that Donald Trump would throw Rudy out to the wolves like this, right? Because there's Rudy going, please, Donald, please get my legal bills. Get me, do a joint defense agreement, do something. Get me, a lawyer separate from yours if that's what it takes. Anything at all. Please just get me represented. And Donald Trump is like, no, can't do it. I can't. So the best that Donald Trump would give Rudy is he said he would headline. I mean, this is so disgusting. He said he said he would headline a fundraiser for Rudy to raise funds to pay for some sort of a legal defense. And that's as far as he'll go for Rudy. He'll appear in public to raise money for Rudy so that Rudy can, and he'll headline it. That's it. That's all he'll do for him. Now, that's really interesting when you consider all the people that Donald Trump gets their legal bills, okay? All these people. And the ones that he's shoving under the bus, the ones that he's turning loose, the ones that he's, throwing to the wolves. See, this is what's so crazy is Rudy, obviously, I guess Donald knows they don't need Rudy's testimony to sink him, that they've already got everything that they need in the documents case especially, okay? But in the January 6th case, obviously they have what they need and they don't need Rudy. And, Fulton County, I don't think Fani needs Rudy either. She's got the other side. She's got the legislature. She's got the people Rudy lied to, right? We don't need Rudy to admit that he lied because Rudy will not admit that he lied. Rudy will say he didn't lie and that they're lying about the lie he told to them. But don't forget there's tapes, okay? There's tapes, there's videotapes of him talking to the legislature. So they may not need Rudy. And this might be the reason why Donald Trump is so emboldened to say, Rudy, you're cooked. You're done. You're going. You're going to the big house. You're going to the who's gal. Take a handful of pills, swallow them, and say, now take me to prison. Be a man. Be a man. Because Rudy's on tape. I don't even think they need him. But Jenna Ellis, he won't pay her legal bills either. And Sidney Powell, they're all out there on their own. Now, I guess Sidney Powell, they consider too insane to ever rely on anything she would say. But remember, these are the people, and Rudy too, who actually said America's votes were counted in Italy. America's votes were changed by Chinese thermostat satellites. Yeah, like Alexa. America's votes were taken by Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez, who's been dead since, 2013. So how is a jury supposed to rely on any of their statements anyway?
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
The Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
We've never had.
Last week, T-Mobile, my cell phone provider, pinged me with a rude message. Henceforth, we will screw you out of an extra $5 a month. What? Had I done something wrong? No. Would I be getting some added benefit for my $5? No. It seems that T-Mobile bean counters have just arbitrarily decided that we customers who use credit cards to pay our phone bills online must pay an extra $5 each month as a payment processing fee. Yes, we're to pay them to take our money. Bonnie and Clyde were not that brazen. You can avoid the add-on if you give your bank account number to T-Mobile, allowing it, and who knows who else, to have direct access to your personal stash of cash. No. Tut-tut, say the T-Mobilers. Your private info is perfectly secure with us. Do they think we have sucker wrappers around our heads? Just 8 months ago, their security system let thieves swipe the personal data of 37 million customers, including names, account numbers, addresses, phone numbers, and birth dates. Well, sniff free market ideologues, just switch to a competitor. But AT&T, Verizon, etc. have all adopted the exact same thieving give-us-your-bank account scheme. Phone service today is a shared monopoly, not a free market, and it's now copycatting airlines, banks, and other monopolistic profiteers that constantly fabricate add-ons and pricing gimmicks to gouge consumers. This is Jim Hightower saying, T-Mobile rose to telecom prominence a decade ago by attacking its rivals for overcharging and abusing consumers. It ran ads publicly demanding that AT&T and others stop their greedy practices, quote, because it's the right thing to do. But now that it's a monopolistic giant, T-Mobile's new line is that might makes right. So it has joined the industry's consumer abuse greed game. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is made possible by you subscribers to Jim Hightower's Lowdown.
The Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
You know, we've never had the combination of record warm oceans plus very strong developing El Nino event in recorded history.
Hurricane Hillary makes history as new storms brew in the record hot Atlantic. Panama Canal crippled by severe drought. Plus, Ecuador votes to protect the Amazon rainforest and keep oil in the ground.
Keep it in the ground. All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And it was only a few days ago before we all walked into one of the most significant weather events of our lives, something that makes meteorologists. Many meteorologists can pinpoint an event that was just so off the charts that drew them into this field, and this was Tropical Storm Hillary.
Okay, now we're getting a little pornographic. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, are you as excited about Hurricane Hillary as that guy was?
Well, Hurricane Hillary was a truly historic storm.
Yes, it was.
As we go to air, Southern California is drying out and cleaning up from historic Hurricane Hillary, which spun up fast in the unusually warm Pacific Ocean, rapidly intensified to a powerful Category 4 storm in just 24 hours, making landfall on Mexico's Baja California Peninsula over the weekend before becoming the first tropical storm to hit California since 1939.
And exciting Ariel Cohen of the National Weather Service, apparently.
Yep. Tons of rainfall records broken, especially in mountain and desert areas like Palm Springs Valley, which was hit by nearly a year's worth of rain in a day, overwhelming its stormwater infrastructure. Hillary triggered unprecedented flash floods and mudslides that severely damaged transportation infrastructure across Southern California. But there were no reports of deaths or major injuries in the U.S.,
thus allowing me to have a big laugh at it all, I guess.
AccuWeather released a preliminary estimate of the total economic losses and damages from Tropical Storm Hillary in the western U.S., putting it at $7 to $9 billion.
Okay, less funny.
Climate scientists say man-made climate change turbocharged Hillary's rapid intensification, its historic track into California, and its torrential rainfall impact.
Okay, definitely less funny.
And it's not just Hillary. The sleepy Atlantic hurricane season has suddenly lurched into life with a string of new tropical storms suddenly brewing all at once, which experts say is especially unusual during a developing El Nino in the Pacific Ocean. Climate scientists say record hot water temperatures in the Atlantic are providing fuel to sustain storms as hurricane season reaches its peak in September. Severe drought is backing up the Panama Canal. The drought has caused a drop in water levels in the shipping channel, which is filled by 2 freshwater lakes. Canal operators have reduced loads and crossings this summer, with more than 200 ships on both sides of the canal waiting to pass through. Maritime transportation experts warn such events could become the new normal, with rainfall deficits affecting the ocean shipping industry that moves nearly 80% of global trade.
That as well is going to end up costing billions and billions of dollars, it would seem.
In Canada's historic 2023 wildfire season, firefighters are still battling massive fires that forced the mass evacuation of Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories, in Canada's worst fire season on record. British Columbia has declared a state of emergency due to the fires. Officials now warn that Canada's fires could last not just through the fall, but into winter. UCLA climate scientist Dr. Daniel Swain on the broadcast said that while scientists scientists accurately predicted the rate of man-made global warming that we're seeing today. They underestimated its impacts on ecosystems and human systems, which are more intense and arriving earlier than expected. And that means society hasn't yet come to terms about what it all actually means for the world we live in.
Given that we're continuing to warm on this roughly linear track, but even if it stays relatively linear, the impacts won't be. And we're starting to see things, the limits of our adaptability already, and it's only going to get harder with additional warming.
But there is some good news. India has approved a $7 billion plan to build and deploy 10,000 new all-electric buses in nearly 200 cities to cut local air pollution and emissions, and officials say they're cheaper to operate. And finally, in Ecuador, in a historic national referendum, Ecuadorians voted overwhelmingly to ban oil drilling in Yasuni National Park in the Amazon rainforest, one of the most diverse biospheres in the world. It's hailed as a historic example of climate democracy, and it was also a victory for indigenous peoples and conservationists.
I will share that hailing. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks, Mastodons, and site formerly known as Twitter. We're going to be off for a bit.
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
A Trump employee changing his testimony in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents federal case. This is according to a new filing from federal prosecutors tonight. An IT worker whose attorney was paid for by Trump's Political Action Committee initially told prosecutors he didn't remember any conversations about security footage at Mar-a-Lago. Remember, the indictment charges that Trump and others tried to delete security camera footage at the club to prevent the footage from being provided to a federal grand jury. Then the filing says the employee, quote, immediately after receiving new counsel, retracted his prior false testimony and provided information that implicated Trump co-conspirators Walt Nauta, De Oliveira, and Trump in efforts to delete security camera footage. We have Jessica Schneider out front breaking this reporting for us tonight. Jessica, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, Brianna, so they're revealing this in a brand new filing just a few minutes ago. So they believe that these two employees at Mar-a-Lago gave this false testimony about these efforts to delete what were incriminating footage from security camera at Trump's Florida club. So we've learned through this filing the two employees are Carlos de Oliveira and Yusil Tavares. Now, we know de Oliveira because he's been charged in that superseding indictment in Florida. We've seen him in court. He was indicted along with the former president and the former president's aide, Walt Nauta. But Yusil Tavares has not been charged here. He's only been identified in court documents as Trump employee number 4. But what this filing is all about is that it's come to light that after Tavares switched attorneys, because he and Walt Nauta up until this point actually had the same attorney, Stan Woodward. Well, Tavares, now that he's working with a public defender, he seems to be changing his story. He initially told prosecutors one account of efforts to delete the security footage, namely that he didn't remember any efforts to delete security footage. But now that he's working with a public defender, it appears that Tavares may be amending his story. And the problem with that would be that it would potentially incriminate Walt Nauta. So, Brianna, prosecutors really looking closely at this new testimony. It implicates, hearings, change in attorneys. But obviously, this all relates to the case against the former president.
Spider, get me a drink. Spider, get me a drink. See that over there? He's a rat. He's a rat. Comes from a family of rats. This is what's going on. They're eating each other now at Magaloco is what's going on. This is so Cassidy Hutchinson, isn't it, everybody? This is so her. Yeah, because here's this guy who this is employee number 4. This is the guy Tavares, who actually said when he was asked to wipe the server, which is hysterical because that's what Trump has been accusing Hillary of doing all these many years, like 8 years now. But when he asked this employee at Magaloco to wipe the server of any surveillance footage that would show Walt Nada or Oliveira or any other employee at Magaloco moving boxes of super secret war battle plans with Iran, top secret material, intelligence material, all kinds of stuff, they were caught on tape on the Magaloco surveillance cameras, on their own surveillance camera. I mean, this is such Keystone Cops is like, it's too good for them, right? But they record themselves doing the illegal thing, doing the espionage thing. Espionage is what we're talking about. They're charged under the Espionage Act. Okay, they go to this guy, Tavares, the IT guy, and they say to him, the boss wants us to wipe the server. And he says, I don't know if I have the rights to do that. And he doesn't mean the right. He didn't say the right. He said the rights, plural, meaning I don't know how. I don't have the permissions to get into the system and delete whatever you want deleted from the server. Okay, I can't do that. I don't have the permissions to do that. Okay, so they say, all right, you know what? We got caught. Don't worry about it. We'll stick together. We got the same lawyer, all of us. We got this guy, Stan Woodward. Now, when they told me that Stan Woodward in the newspaper, you know, that's how I know. They told me, the newspaper did, that Stan Woodward was representing all these people who had different, stories and different goals and different ideas about what to do about being indicted, about what to do about being called an unindicted co-conspirator, about what to do and what to say. Just like Cassidy Hutchinson, right? She had all the dirt on Mark Meadows and what he was doing prior to January 6th, what Rudy Giuliani was telling her was going to happen on January 6th. But her lawyer, who was paid for by Trump at first, told her to testify under oath that she didn't remember any of this. She didn't remember Rudy saying, oh, you know what, Cass, are you excited about January 6th? Why, Rudy? What's happening on January 6th? Oh, Cass, it's going to be great. It's going to be just amazing. It's going to be great. The president's going to go out. He's going to, and then she goes and she tells Mark Meadows, "Did you know what Rudy's telling me is going to happen on January 6th?" And Mark Meadows also knows it's going to be a violent day. Tells Cassidy, "Cass, it's going to get really bad. It's going to get really bad." Well, she didn't remember any of this when she was being, coached by a Trump-paid-for attorney. But as soon as she switched attorneys, the restaurant got good again. As soon as they changed chefs, right? And so all of a sudden, she's like remembering. And not only is she's remembering in detail that he threw ketchup at the wall, what he was doing, where Rudy was standing, what Mark Meadows was scrolling through, what couch he was sitting on, what day it was, that she goes across to Tony Ornato's office, all right, the head of the Secret Service. Everybody is confirming her wildest fears about what Rudy... it's unbelievable what a change in attorneys will do for your memory. It's better than Prevagen. It's better than jellyfish. It's better than, Nariva Plus with all the 5 different vitamins, to restore 5 different functions of the failing brain, to restore the memories. Well, same thing happened here with this guy. This guy was being paid for by Donald Trump, and he was being represented by Stan Woodward, who represented other clients that had cross purposes from this man, Tavares. Tavares just wanted to get this over with. He just wanted to tell the truth and go home. That's all he wanted. Well, Woodward knew that he couldn't tell the truth and go home, that if he told the truth, Woodward's other clients would never go home. They would be in prison probably for the rest of their lives under the Espionage Act, which is what they're accused of violating. And so he coached this Tavares guy to say he didn't recall. All of a sudden, Tavares gets wind of the idea that he's going to, be identified as an unindicted co-conspirator, and this is his chance, right? This is his chance not to get indicted with the rest of this miscreant crowd. And all he is an IT guy who didn't have the permission to get into a server and wipe it. And he knows that's what he was asked to do. So he gets a public defender because he can't afford an attorney, but he's just like not willing to lie for these this rat pack. Not willing to do it. He gets a public defender, and the public defender clearly shows him the error of his ways, gives him a prevagen, and tells him, now do you remember? Yes, I do. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And he tells him that he remembers being asked to wipe the server. And he remembers telling Walt Nauta, who's also represented by this Woodward guy, that he didn't have the permissions to do something like that he wasn't able to get in there. And that Walt was on the tape. Moving the boxes. Moving the boxes. Time to move the boxes. It's an amazing thing, what could happen to a person's memory when you, give it the kind of, encouragement it needs. Cassidy Hutchinson remembers everything down to the details of who was in Tony Ornato's office on a certain day and time of the day. Just incredible. And this guy also, he gets a public defender and he remembers everything. He said he decided to change lawyers after he learned he was being investigated for lying under oath, for perjury, for having made false statements, for saying that he doesn't remember, when clearly he testified about other things in the same time frame that he did remember, and he was in big trouble. And nobody would help him, so he got himself a public defender.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
The Bob Cesca Show.
Bob Cesca. I'm still leaning toward Trump suddenly showing up for the debate. I think he's going to show up because I don't think Donald Trump can resist being on television. And I think a lot of people are hectoring him because it's a sign of weakness.
I don't know whether it's a mistake or not a mistake for him to show up. I know it's going to look bad to a lot of Republican voters, maybe not Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Here's my take on this. Trump will get all the camera time he needs the day after the debate.
Yeah.
When the analysis begins to fade from Wednesday night's debate, Trump will be on TV making a show to the extent that he can about getting arrested in Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. And he's gonna, you're talking about him being a hog for camera time. He'll get that. In fact, he'll upstage the entire debate solo the following day, regardless of what they say about him the night before. And look at the poll numbers of the people who will be debating, the 8 Republican candidates who will be debating Wednesday night. The situation, here's the vibe, I think, at the debate. It's on Fox, of course, and Trump had planned to send in sort of a proxy team of Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle and send them into the spin room at Fox, and Rupert Murdoch has now banned them. There will be no Trump team in the spin room after the debate on Fox. So there's an interesting dynamic going on there. I think Fox. I think Trump plans to steal the show on Thursday, solo, and I don't think he will show. I think he'll let them all flail, and then he'll make a show the following day. That's my guess. But you could be right. It wouldn't be un-Trumpian for him to show up.
Bob Cesca. It's the Bob Cesca Show. New episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everywhere you get your podcasts, and at bobcescashow.com.
Whether you're listening to Leslie Marshall each Tuesday through Friday or Brad Bannon each Monday, you can hear them from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Scott Paul in the House. He's president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing.
First of all, I do want to say that I don't believe a military conflict with China is desirable or inevitable. I think we ought to do everything we possibly can to avoid that. At the same time, I think we need to be realistic about what the intentions of the Chinese government are, particularly with respect to some strategic competition, and they're not necessarily friendly to our interests there. And so it strikes me as odd that we would have a trade policy that treats the People's Republic of China the same way as it treats a country like the Netherlands or the United Kingdom or anybody else. It just, that doesn't make sense to me. But that's what China has right now. It has something called permanent normal trade relations. It's not quite a free trade agreement, but the tariffs are super, super low, except for on some other goods that they've been punished for. It just seems that we're at a moment where it makes sense for Congress to have more control over the tariff rates and to use those as a bit of a leverage or a hedge, I guess, rather than having this blank check that we've basically written to China with the expectation that its government would change its behavior over the course of 20 or 25 years. It's clear that hasn't happened. It's clear it's not going to happen. And I think that's abundantly clear now, unfortunately. And so our lawmakers have it in their power to take it back by passing a bill to revoke permanent normal trade relations for China. If you asked a lot of members of Congress who were around,
I watched it on TV.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So Mark Meadows is filing a petition in federal court asking a judge to make a ruling before Friday that says his case is moving to federal court or that Fani Willis cannot arrest him.
That's right. So Mark Meadows already had filed what's called a notice of removal, Katie. He has a hearing scheduled on that notice of removal for Monday. And it's not just any hearing. It's supposed to be an evidentiary hearing where you can present evidence, whether it's emails or hard copy documents, or even put people on the stand. Many of us were waiting to see how that would go down on Monday. Now Mark Meadows is saying, hey, court, you need to decide that motion before Friday because my lawyers have tried to work out a reasonable extension with the DA's office and they're not having it. In fact, in this motion, Mark Meadows' lawyers quote from an email directly from Fani Willis to one of the lawyers saying, I'm not granting any extensions. I gave 2 weeks for people to surrender themselves to the court. Your client is no different than any other criminal defendant in this jurisdiction. The 2 weeks was a tremendous courtesy. And at 12:30 p.m. on Friday, I shall file warrants in the system.
Oh, man. I mean, you want to talk about white privilege? There it is. That's what it looks like. That's what it sounds like. That's what it tastes like. That's what it smells like. Mark Meadows, who was obviously fingered by Cassidy Hutchinson, who at first didn't remember jack. She didn't remember anything. And then all of a sudden she changed lawyers. And suddenly the skies parted. The angels wept. It was a cleansing moment of clarity. And she remembered everything that Mark Meadows did and everything that ringleader was doing to get alternative legal views in front of the president, because the president of the United States didn't want to listen to the White House counsel. He didn't want to listen to Pat Cipollone, a man he picked. He didn't want to listen to Bill Barr, a man he picked as the Attorney General of the United States. He didn't want to listen to Eric Hirschman. He didn't want to listen to any of the free, wonderful lawyers that made it all the way to serving a United States president based on their legal acumen in his arena, in his field, what is legal and what is not for a president to do. He wanted somebody that would go rogue. He wanted a John Eastman. He wanted a Jeffrey Clark, some guy that he could pluck out of the environmental section deep inside of the Department of Justice who would tell him any crap he wanted to hear, just like the Trump supporters surveyed recently about who would they vote for if Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot. And their answer is, I'll do whatever Donald Trump tells me to do. 71% of them. Okay? And so Mark Meadows was the ringleader in finding, and Ginny Thomas too. I mean, I got this sick feeling that she's one of the unindicted, co-conspirators. How could she not be? She is the linchpin she is the person that introduced Donald Trump and John Eastman. She's the one that ID'd, Jeffrey Clark. I mean, there's so much more to this story than we even know, and the story that we know is unbelievable. It is at least a two-parter. It's at least 6 hours of great film. At least, right? Well, this takes place over at least 7-8 years now. It's a long-ass time to be invested in a person. Marriages don't last this long. But anyway, Mark Meadows is asking for his case, and the reason here is so easily disproven. But Mark Meadows is asking for his case to be taken out of state court and be put into federal court. Now, I'll go through the reasons why he might want to do that. But the criteria that he has to meet in order for that to be doable by a judge is this. He has to say that because he was working for the federal government as chief of staff to the President of the United States, his job involved breaking the law. What? Yeah, that's what Mark Meadows is trying to peddle, except he won't phrase it that way. He'll say, it's not because I was chief of staff and I was working for the federal government for the President of the United States, and he asked me to do certain things, I had to do them as a function of being chief of staff. And then the judge is going to ask his attorney or him or whoever cares to answer the next question, which is, do you not know that the President of the United States has no role to play in Georgia's election, in Arizona's election, in Wisconsin? That the only role that Donald Trump got to play in any federal election for re-election is he is the subject of the election. He has nothing to say about how it's executed because precisely he is the subject on the ballot. You get that, right? So what the hell were you doing finding lawyers to advise him that there was a way for him to do anything about the result of a free and fair election in any state in this country? That is not a function of the federal government. So, no, you weren't acting in your official capacity as chief of staff to the president, because any chief of staff to a president of the United States would know that. Number two, there are crime fraud exceptions to every single thing any federal employee would ever do. There are crime fraud exceptions that separate the president and his attorneys. And it was pierced, the attorney-client privilege, because judges found that even his attorneys were engaged in crime and fraud. That's how we got to know what Rudy Giuliani knows, okay? Crime fraud exception pierced because they were all participating in a giant crime known as defrauding the people of the United States of their free and fair election. I mean, listen, Michael Ludwig, who is one of the most conservative of the conservatives that you would ever want to see on a court, a former federal court judge, okay? Every single person who works in any branch of the judiciary, whether it's a district court, a federal court, an appeals court, the Supreme Court, they all know Michael Ludwig, okay? Even Pence knew he could get advice on what was and was not permitted by virtue of the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act by placing a call and getting the guidance from Michael Ludwig or Dan Quayle. Saying those two names in the same sentence is really horrific, okay? You should only know what a sin that is. But Michael Ludwig said if there was anything he wanted to tell the American people, it was that this is not political what they did. This has nothing to do with politics. This is a crime. That is what you are seeing. That is what the evidence is showing. That is what the testimony is proving. This has zero to do with politics. It has nothing to do with MAGA or Republican or Republicans, or it has nothing to do with anything other than Donald Trump wished to break the law in order to defraud you out of your voice, to take away, not you voted, we couldn't take away our right to vote. He could take away our right to have our votes counted, which is so Russian. Yes, they have elections over there in Russia, but Putin always gets 98% of the vote. Why? Because Putin is the counter. Right.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. It's an Erasmus week, so you must be happy.
I'm looking forward to the mugshot. I can't wait for the mugshot. It's the little things.
Yeah, it is. I know we can say that's, petty and vindictive, but it's not. It's just that no one is. We just want one moment of no one's above the law. Every other, there's no one else that would even be out on bail in this many jurisdictions like this, right?
Right, and let's be honest, he's getting a full police escort to get his mugshots, and then he's getting a full police escort back. So it's not like, it's still not really quite there with no one is above the law. But still.
Now, are you, because I know you like to do a little bit of betting over there in Jersey, are you in the over and under on, what is it, 273 pounds is the betting pool for the weigh-in?
I'm definitely team over. I mean, I think one of his legs might, not that I'm fat shaming, but I'm definitely team over. Let's be honest. I mean, I had 2 babies. I was up to 240 after the second one, and I didn't look like Donald Trump. I think he's 302.
Okay. All right. That's all right. Okay. Well, and it's still under Taft. Okay. You tweeted, in the carefully curated, created chaos, one party seeks to seize control of a frenzied, mindless, distracted mob who doesn't care about what's real and what is not. They don't care about platform or policy. They want revenge. That really, it's what he's running on, right? I'm your vengeance. Didn't he say that?
I'm your retribution.
Yeah.
That is 100% what he's running on. And the whole machine is stoking this very idea that these people need to revenge something. They don't even know. They don't need to know. It's related to their stoves or their M&Ms. They don't know. But they're mad. They're really mad. And he's going to be their revenge for whatever it is that they're mad about that they don't know.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
No Labels designated Donald Trump as a problem solver in 2016. You stand by that?
He solved some problems, and he didn't solve others, just like every other politician in Washington, D.C.
For the first time ever, a president has been impeached twice.
January 6th, it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and they were there proud. They were there with love in their heart. That was an unbelievable, and it was a beautiful day.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
A 9-member jury found that Donald Trump did sexually abuse her.
Federal indictments, plural. A grand jury here in New York City has just handed up an indictment against former President Donald Trump, making him the first former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges.
Including the unlawful retention of defense information, which is an Espionage Act charge.
Last week, T-Mobile, my cell phone provider, pinged me with a rude message. Henceforth, we will screw you out of an extra $5 a month. What? Had I done something wrong? No. Would I be getting some added benefit for my $5? No. It seems that T-Mobile bean counters have just arbitrarily decided that we customers who use credit cards to pay our phone bills online must pay an extra $5 each month as a payment processing fee. Yes, we're to pay them to take our money. Bonnie and Clyde were not that brazen. You can avoid the add-on if you give your bank account number to T-Mobile, allowing it, and who knows who else, to have direct access.
Don't give up hope. Don't give up what's true.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, 34 after, Brad in Las Vegas.
Hey, Randi.
Hi.
You're probably the one person I can think of that would have the timeline maybe in your head.
In my head?
When did they flood the basement at Mar-a-Lago?
I don't know.
Because think of it, if they went to the IT guy and said, you need to erase this, and then he said, I can't or won't, and then flooded the basement trying to destroy the server. If that's the timeline, then that is even more incriminatory.
Yeah, listen, nothing they did was above board. The idea that he said first he didn't have any documents, that if he had documents, they were planted there by the FBI. Don't forget the beginning of the story, okay? And then when he said, oh, I do have documents, but they're mine. They're mine, okay? And then he said that he had documents, they were his, and he never showed them to anybody. He didn't need to, but then there's tape of him showing, and then he lies and says, I wasn't showing them war plans for Iran. They were just, newspaper articles, and they were just, they were, and then he said, oh, well, I didn't have time to go through the boxes, right? And they were mixed in with my clothes. They were mixed in with golf shoes. They were mixed in with my, now we find out that dozens of employees at Magaloco were interviewed, right? And there was a whole lot of effort to disguise or to remove taped evidence of their crime, which was they were moving these boxes to places where they couldn't be found.
Yep. I'm just saying they tried a bunch of different ways, and maybe one of those ways was flooding the basement. And
right.
If it happened after that, good luck with that, guys.
Yeah. So, listen, obviously this was a very large attempt to cover up the stealing of documents, lying about them and every other thing. Okay. So what Michael Ludwig is saying is that this is not political.
If there's one thing that I could tell the country and today, it would be that the effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election was not and is not politics. This is, as we now know from the indictments of the former president by the Department of Justice and Jack Smith, these were grave crimes against the United States of America, perhaps almost as grave as would have been treason. The night that I received the first call from my longtime friend Richard Cullen, he cast the question that way, which is, what can we do for the country? What can the Vice President of the United States do for America 2 days thence? This has never been a mission of mine. It's never been a quest of mine, as the Washington Post said. It's I suppose one could say that it's been a quest, only in the limited sense that it has been a search, not just on my part, but on the part of the American people for the truth under the Constitution of the United States about the events of January 6th. Just one word about your impending question about my conservative transition. Again, this is not political, Nicole. It never has been, and it never will be. I've not changed my conservative jurisprudential views. I've not changed my conservative political views one bit.
Not in 50 years, and he never will. Michael Ludwig is what you see is what you get. He is an uber, dyed-in-the-wool, not just a Republican, he is a conservative judge. He has always been that. And he's trying to talk to people who vote that way and tell them in a very candidly honest way, this is not politics. Never mind that it's not politics as usual, and you think that's good because you think it's some sort of politics, just not the same old politics. It's not politics. It's crime. It's criminal activity. That is what you are looking at. That is what is being testified to. That is what every part of this story whether it happened in the White House, whether it was a White House counsel, whether it was the Attorney General of the United States, whether it was a deputy White House counsel, whether it was the chief of staff to the Vice President of the United States, whether it was the chief of staff to the President of the United States, whether it was, the Department of Defense, whether it was Milley or anybody else that said, no, he knew he lost because he said when we told him about a certain situation, he said, let's leave that for the next guy to figure out. I don't need to get involved in the situation in I forget which country, Iran or whatever it was. He said, or Afghanistan. And he said, leave that for the next guy. It's not my problem anymore. He knew he lost, right? This isn't politics. This is crime. This is defrauding all of us, every single last one of us who voted, whether you voted for him or you didn't. Doesn't matter. He wanted the count to look the way he wanted the count to look. He wanted the results to be the results he wanted. And he would do anything to make that happen, including speak on a recorded line, because he believes he can spin his way out of anything he does. That's the most amazing privilege I've ever seen in my life. That is beyond white privilege. That is he's not even white. The man is like a burnt orange. This is like not even political privilege. It's not even the privilege of money. This is a power play. This is the privilege of believing that you wield power and you can use your power in an evil way and no one can stop you, because any other power that would come to match you from the other side, you can one-up them. You could turn it up to 11. That's how much power you have. It's very sick. It's very twisted. It's really ugly. It's really anti-democratic. And he's doing this just because he wants his power back. He cannot deal with the idea that he's going to fade away, that he's going to fade away from a relevant conversation. He's not going to be the center of conversation. He's not going to be the center of news reporting. He's not going to be mentioned in the newspapers. See, this is what happened to Rudy Giuliani. Everybody wants to know, why did Rudy go this way? Rudy was always this way. He was always this way. But he was just clawing his way back so he could continue to be that way. And he made a lot of mistakes in clawing his way back because he didn't have any power. He was relying on Donald Trump's power to give him power. And he had to do really dirty things in order to get back to relevance. And that's all he was trying to do, get back to relevance, political relevance. And this is what happens.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
A somber day for the country. Former President Trump has been indicted, connected to efforts to interfere with the democratic process.
After it became public on the afternoon of January 6th that the vice president would not fraudulently alter the election results, a large and angry crowd,
including many individuals whom the defendant had deceived into believing the vice president could and might change the election results, violently attacked the Capitol and halted the proceeding. As violence ensued,
the defendant and co-conspirators exploited the disruption by redoubling efforts to levy false claims of election fraud and convince members of Congress to further delay the certification based on those claims.
We're proud of what we've done to be #1 in education freedom.
Ron DeSantis knows the importance of a good education.
But with this new bill I've signed, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Now Floridians are able to enroll at Ron DeSantis' slave trade school. Find out how easy it is to learn from home, just not your home, for a career in exciting fields such as
being a blacksmith.
Slaves did develop skills
while they were enslaved and then used those skills as blacksmiths, as in agriculture, carpentry, tailoring, painting, domestic service, transportation, in the shipping business.
They listed everything out, and if you have any questions about it, just ask the Department of Education.
Or get your degree. You can major in rewritten history or generational trauma. Call now.
You should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
As kids, we learn that bullies can't help it. They pick on anyone they think is smaller, weaker. They pick on people they think won't fight back.
So you're going to give a speech or you're going to ask a question?
And like all bullies,
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
they keep going.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up.
Until they get punched in the face.
I still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
Until they see someone standing up.
This is the voice of the people.
Not breaking.
If the governor thinks he can do a better job, then he should run for state attorney, not president.
Not bending.
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not the governor of the state.
Not giving in.
Do you think that your tweets and your name calling are turning people off?
Because when bullies get their way, they never stop.
Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this.
There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
I'm just saying, he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me.
There was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. And it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se.
Trying to
Declassified.
figure out a yeah.
See, as president, I could have declassified
Yeah.
it. Now I can't, but this is
Yeah,
classified.
now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting? So when you send it, it's declassified.
I declassified everything. All I know is this, everything I did was right.
Excited to see members of Congress incite violence against law enforcement, enjoy armed insurrections, and the big lie? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you think election results should only count when Republicans win, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1900. That was the day that folk singer Malvina Reynolds was born to a Jewish family in San Francisco. Her parents were socialists and operated a tailor shop. Malvina learned the price of speaking out for what you believe in at a young age. Her parents opposed U.S. entry into World War.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The first thing you got to ask is who won the 2020 debate? Yeah. And secondly, you got to ask what happened on January 6th. Mm-hmm. And if people aren't willing to answer those two questions truthfully, I don't see how they ever beat Donald Trump. Right. I understand there are a lot of people in the Republican Party who voters who feel or go with Trump on all of that. But unless you're willing to kind of stand up and say, here's the truth, and more importantly, focus and say, we've got to stop talking about 2020. Let's talk about your future in 2024. You're just not going to win.
I don't even understand what that what he just said. Do you? Why does Chris Wallace think that the answer to the question who won the 2020 debate is the question that needs to be answered tonight, and that then they have to say let's move on from 2020 and look at 2020? I don't know what's going on there. I have no earthly idea why that's important to Chris Wallace. Honestly, Not a clue. But, okay, so I looked up your question in Las Vegas. What was his name? Does anybody remember? Okay.
I'm drawing a blank on his name now.
So I looked up whether or not the flooding of the Magalocco, pool area, that the pump house, happened before or after they retrieved the documents from Magalocco. It happened after. Now, it may have been an effort to, get rid of the tape. But the documents were gone. I don't know. Was that your? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm looking at like a million timelines now, because if you ask me something that I don't know, then I have to freaking know. And I can't tell from even the Washington Post's timeline, because you know what they say, that the guy that actually flooded is the De Oliveira guy. That's the guy who actually flooded the room that had the tape in it. And De Oliveira and Nauda and this guy who actually got the public defender, this Tavares guy, these three, they're the ones that were, thinking about whether or not they could erase the server. And the Tavares guy said, I don't have the rights, meaning I can't, I'm not able. Not that he wouldn't if he could, just saying he can't, he's not able. So that was the same Oliveira guy that actually ended up flooding the room where the server was kept. So, listen, they're just disgusting, is what it is. I don't know why you that matters in your mind. What matters is that they stole these documents, lied about taking them, lied about having them, lied about showing them. These are the secrets of the United States. These are documents that reveal our plans of attack if we were attacked by Iran. I mean, that's what he's waving around, showing to a super PAC lady, okay, a lady who fundraises, and two people who are trying to write Mark Meadows, bullcrap autobiography. I mean, Mark Meadows isn't writing his autobiography. These ghostwriters are writing it, and that's why they're there. And that's who he's showing. I mean, these are like randos off the street, except for, the PAC lady. Okay, she controls his money. But the other two, they're just like randos. They're ghostwriters who are writing, a book at the behest of Mark Meadows because they're getting paid by some publisher in a publishing deal that Mark Meadows got, right? And so they've been assigned the task of, going and talking to Donald Trump and getting some cute stories or some, innovative, angles on Mark Meadows' time as chief of staff. And this is what they get. They get top secret documents shown to them. Oh my God. So I really wouldn't be as concerned about what Oliveira did when he did it as I would be that they were trying to cover up the fact that they had top secret and super. I mean, no foreign eyes. Okay, that means you can't even show this to our allies. No foreign eyes. This is the classification of the materials that he had, and that they denied that they had them. Then he said, if I have them, it's because the FBI planted them. Then he said, no, I have them. They're mine. And then they said, the real big crime is called dissemination. I mean, everything I just described is a crime. It is a violation of the Espionage Act. To house or cause top secret documents to not be safeguarded from people who have no right to see them. Just that alone is a crime under the Espionage Act. But then to actually willfully disseminate them to people not qualified to see them, that is the full boat. That's everything. That is the whole banana. That is the prize. That is the cherry on the cake of the crime that you would disseminate, that you would show, that you would make available to people unauthorized to see. And that is what he did. And those two people, well, there's three in that room that we know of, and the two that we know of are ghostwriters for Mark Meadows, and the other one is a super PAC lady. Seriously. Don't trouble your brain with, did they flood the room to try and cover up the server? The FBI had already taken the documents. They knew that, they already have them. They don't need to show anything more than they were able to retrieve them from an insecure location. And now you get the audio tape where he's showing it to people, and that's in New Jersey. So, that's the superseding indictment. That's the indictment that came after the original indictment. But anyway, I got to tell you, so tonight, the question isn't who won the 2020 debate. Like, why would I even want to know that? From Vivek Ramaswamy, like, what is his opinion about who won the 2020? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I do want people to answer the question about whether or not Donald Trump incited violence on January 6th. I think we need to, ask them questions about why they won't, speak up about what Donald Trump did with regard to keeping these documents in an insecure location. I think we need their opinion on what they would do, if they knew that somebody was disseminating our national security secrets to the detriment of the people out in the field who collect those secrets for our national security, for our safety. Do wouldn't you want to know about that? Wouldn't you want to know, what their opinion is on what happened there and who should be held accountable for that? Not who won the debate. Did he really? I don't know why that's a thing.
The first thing you got to ask is who won the 2020 debate? Yeah.
Yeah, he really did say that. I'm lost, okay? I don't understand the mainstream media at all. I don't understand what they're doing. I can tell you that yesterday when I was sick to my stomach over the coverage of Joe Biden in Maui and the amount of help and aid that was within 6 hours released by the declaration of a national disaster being the case in Maui, making available people, emergency funds for people to stay in hotels, making it available for hotels to open up the hotels for people affected who lost their homes, who lost, the ability to put a roof over their head. And also Airbnbs opened their doors by virtue of the federal government. FEMA is going to pay so that they can open up the Airbnbs to people who need a place to stay. And all they said, they literally mangled the story on purpose, telling you that all Joe Biden offered to these people was $700. It almost made me want to cry, because I realized that when the media is of that quality and it's really operating in ill repute, it's actually doing detrimental things to people who need information, not only to know what's possible for them if you're in a disaster area, but also for us to understand whether our government is functioning properly but for the grace of God go I. I mean, we've got these heat domes, and on the outside of the heat domes that are going across this country right now are these massive storms. That's another story. But anyway, Jessica Tarlov on Fox News tried to lay out the timeline of the Maui response to get them to shut up.
There have been so many craven lies told about the timeline of the response on this. Jesse just said his first comments were no comment, which is categorically untrue. So that was on August 13th. The wildfires started on August 8th. On August 10th, that's when a major disaster declaration occurred. He got the request from Hawaii to do that. It took him just 63 minutes to sign that.
You signed a piece of
63
paper.
minutes.
I'm talking about.
He signed a piece of paper. Do you know what that released?
Just wait for it. And then later that day, he was in Utah talking about something else, and he opened up by commenting on what was going on in Hawaii and how devastating it was. Listen to what the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, said. Within 6 hours, the administration met our needs with federal movement. I don't think that's ever happened before. The Maui County mayor, I wanted to say how responsive the president has been. He called me. I asked for the help that we needed. And within 2 hours, one of his cabinet members called me to answer my question.
I mean, it's disgusting.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazzar. This time on Code WACK, How are corporate health insurers using artificial intelligence to step up their claims denials? And what's being done to out some of the bad actors in Medicare Advantage? To find out, we spoke to Diane Archer, founder and president of Just Care USA, an independent digital media hub covering health and financial issues facing boomers and their families.
We're focused heavily on outing the bad actors in Medicare Advantage, not knowing how many of them are bad actors, but knowing from the Office of the Inspector General that there is this widespread and persistent inappropriate delays and denials of care in the Medicare Advantage program. We want the government to name names. We want escalating penalties for insurers that are engaged in these bad acts, culminating in the cancellation of their contracts. We want to make sure that nobody is signing up for a Medicare Advantage plan that endangers their health and well-being or puts their life at risk. And right now, we have every reason to believe that some, if not the majority, of Medicare Advantage plans are a risky proposition for people with Medicare.
Get the full Code WAC story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
On the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
You know, we've never had the combination of record warm oceans plus very strong developing El Nino event in recorded history.
Hurricane Hillary makes history as new storms brew in the record hot Atlantic. Panama Canal crippled by severe drought. Plus, Ecuador votes to protect the Amazon rainforest